To have you all here, and excited to have Kelly joining us. I'm going to go over our mission statements and then introduce Kelly, and then we'll let her take it away. So, Helicon West is a live reading series that brings published local writers to read alongside community members in an open, uncensored forum. In order to promote the voice of every community member and democratic ideals, we honor all levels of skill, ability, and craft. In addition to featuring published authors to give the literary arts more exposure in Cache Valley and its surrounding areas, we invite and celebrate aspiring writers from every walk of life to find and share their voices with us. We are committed to the causes of inclusion, accessibility, and representation in our writing community. Helicon West operates on the territory of the northwestern band of the Shoshone Nation, whose people have been living, working, and residing on this land from time immemorial. We acknowledge that these lands carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. We recognize elders past and present as peoples who have cared for and continue to care for the land. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous self-governance, history, experiences, and resiliency of the Native people who are still here today. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Logan Library, Sugar House Review, the Utah Humanities, our founder and matron saint Stark Holbrook, and the Cache Valley Center for the Arts for our springtime home, but I'm going to edit that away because we're not there anymore. If you would like to read during the open mic, the sign-up sheet is back there. You'll have 7 minutes to read. That will happen after we get to hear from Kelly. And once you exceed 7 minutes, you'll be politely clapped off the stage. If we start clapping, please just move yourself back to your seat. And that will be good. All of our Helicon West events are recorded. If you read during the open mic and do not want to be recorded, like you're afraid your parents will find it or something, just let Josh know, and he will hit pause, and then he'll hit play the minute that you're done, so that everyone else gets to be recorded and you don't have to be. The only other thing is that our next Helicon West will be at the Thatcher Young Mansion. It will be Natalie Young on the 4th Thursday in June. So I should know that date. It's in the calendar though. 2 weeks from today, Thatcher Young Mansion. Natalie Young will be here. And with that, tonight our featured reader is Kelly Hoffer. And Kelly Hoffer is a poet and a book artist. And this is beautiful. That's not written in the bio, but it is.
No, I did put that in there.
Oh yeah. Her poetry was recognized as a finalist for the National Poetry Series in both 2020 and 2021. She's taught literature and creative writing classes at Cornell University, Victoria University, and the University of Iowa. She holds an MFA in poetry from the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she is currently a doctoral candidate in literatures in English at Cornell University. She will join the faculty of the Helen Zell Writers Program at the University of Michigan in the fall of 2023. Undershore is her first book of poems. Thanks, Kelly.
I might need someone to help me. I'm just very small. I know better than to try to adjust a mic myself. Okay, great, thank you. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for making it to this particular room from elsewhere. Thank you for being tolerant of our lateness. Right, great. I do want to say a quick thank you to my wonderful editor and publisher, Lisa Bickmore, the Utah Poet Laureate, who got me here today, and to her lovely husband, John, who's been driving me all over the state. Yes. We were in Cedar City just this morning. I have seen so many mountains, and they've all been lovely and different. Also, I wanted to thank very briefly the Utah Division of Arts and Museums, who gave us a grant in order to put on this sort of event, and also in order to produce the lovely textile book in the corner, which I am sure Lisa will talk about when I'm done. But I will give you a preview, which is that we worked with a really talented fiber artist named Lauren Callis, and she produced this just gorgeous piece of art that is its own thing in response to my book, Undershore. So that's about as lucky as you get as a poet, I think, that sort of attention. So great, so I'm here, wonderful. Okay, Just looking at my time. So this is my first book, Undershore, as you can see. It is my book. It has a cover that is a cyanotype. For people that might not be aware, a cyanotype is a kind of photographic process. Cyanotyping is a kind of photographic process. And the way that, a very early one, so it was the way that we were making some of our earliest photographs. And the way it works is you take a UV sensitive solution, and you paint it, or on a piece of paper, or you imbue a piece of cloth with that solution, and then you expose it to light. And everything that the light touches, Simba, turns blue. And everything that is kept in shadow will remain white with gradations, right? And so this cover image is a piece of kelp that has been laid out on top of that sensitized material. It's from the 1850s. It was made by one of the first female photographers, a woman named Anna Atkins. And she has a really gorgeous collection of algae prints. And I just really fell in love with this and knew pretty immediately that I wanted this as the cover. And then that really got me interested in the cyanotype process more generally, which is how I got to get invested in this quilt, which is made with the same process, but by me, and in the year 2022, not 1850. Welcome, join us, thank you. Great, so I'm going to read some poems from Undershore, and then I'm going to read a couple of new things, because I think it's good to try out some newer stuff. And then I'm so excited to get to hear some other people read. So let's get going. I got my cheat sheet. Sidelong treatises. The moon is bigger, but I am pretty sure we are both celestial objects, carved out of the dark by the sun. Snow keeps snowing, renewing itself. I wake in the morning to find it fresh again, a pristine crystal. The thing about a cliff is the cliffside. Otherwise, it would remain a carpet unfurling in front of you forever. The voice becomes the trailing thing in the forest, tree branches holding to a sound, and I am reminded, last night I dreamt of balconies and expensive art, and my sister lying atop embroidered linens in a hotel room. With regard to the light from the sun, we have a side, which is to say we have two, a shadowed and a bright. The light follows the sloping surface hanging long down the body, the world a robe, more glistening than I thought it could be. I am the surface considered from a particular direction. What are you good for? You see me as a blue thing, through rose liquid, open my duration, unfurling forever. The snow shudders and seizes. When the branches are overcome, the birds startle, breaking open their wings to make the winter flower. Sighed, long, deep, spoken of a roof, heard of my way of sleeping, sighing like I like. I drink into it, a marbled pool. So this manuscript is my first manuscript, and it was based off of my MFA thesis, and some of these poems have been with me for a really long time. First books are often like that. They're often sort of conglomerations of many years of work. And so I am going to read a series that I began right after my mother died, which was almost 10 years ago now. And my mom continues to come and visit me in my dreams sometimes, and that's both exciting and sad. And she, yeah, we talk. I don't always know that she's dead when she's visiting me. And the title Undershore was originally my sort of way of thinking about that kind of space where those visitations happen. So a space that is dreamlike, underwater, sort of between waking and sleep, right? So a kind of peripheral space. So I'll read a couple of the visitation poems. And it's really tricky in my table of contents because they're all called visitations, so it's really hard for me to find the one that I want, but I'm going to do my best. Visitation. In the dream where I don't know she is dead, she comes to me and I talk to her about none of the things I want to talk to my dead mom about. She traces an oval on a wax tablet. Asked about scale, she answers, the landscape just happens to be the size of the frame. The visit is shallow, or it finds depth in the places we don't talk. We spend our time walking over a field robed in cotton. Sound moves fastest in solids, faster in water than in air. Breath, it turns out, is the slowest medium, and the words I have are thick in their churning over. The materials only few and so thin. We share a food between us. I want to have a child, if only to clarify the image she weaves, a suit that happens to be just the size of my body. I sew a shadow to each petal with a curved quilting needle. Amplitude and speed, I am telling you, are unrelated. My name is the last name my mother refused to change. So as not to lose you, the hospital lists your name with your mother's on your baby wristlet. This life is a repetition that knows no bounds, tracing a tablet into a waxing oval that spirals outward, seed of a seed sowing into itself, into the ground. This name just happens to be the size of the concept growing. Gesture to sky in the recess of her breathing as she came up from the water, the film breaking over the ridge of her nose, moving between water and air, the exhalation faster than her body. I remember she is dead. A tree is taken from its halo of needles. A red candle drops an oval around itself onto cloth. Sometimes you feel it, even when you're reading real stuff. Okay. This poem was a little bit of an experiment in playing with opposites or oppositions, and it was almost like a little language game that I was making for myself and seeing what I could do if I moved through a kind of logical sequence that I knew was going to be illogical. Okay. Darkness is to wait as lightness is to lightness. If darkness is to lightness as weight is to lightness, a hallway is two windows connected by a tube, or two squares of light surrounded by heavy dark. Darkening weight. Ink weaves into matter. If darkness is absorption, the light swallows into my matter. If coldness is heat leaving, everything around the darkness is cold. My pain is alone, and the darkness is heatful, and to be left out in the light is the arrival of snow. A snow night would be bright with crystal. My submission would be to be light with edges. A body of heat builds to its brightness, as brightness is lightness reflected, the sheen, a surface slickened. Ink opens in water. Shallow is little depth, undeepening. Shadow is unlightening. The shadow in shallow is slight. A pleasure is a hurtness, coming and leaving at once. It is a heaving window collected by a tube. The shallow in shadow is light, coming through a stocking, silken heat, silky plaything. My coming apart will be a ray unneat in its depth. The sand moves if wave is to particle. as light is to light. How are you doing? Great? Yeah. Flood season. I draw you out on the bed and look for your cancers. I press above your hip bone, a step from your navel. Under my fingers, your gut tenses to muscle, full in the place where one cleans a fish. Coiled iridescence smells like iron, and I know with the right attention, your blood-slicked innards would unfold easy. Perched above you, my breasts are heavy like ballasts, rigged for opening velvet, oil lanterns, animal carcasses, or even stones draping thatch. I knew you best falling out of bed for the first time, how your nipples glimpsed then shied away in your redressing. We go outside and you pick up lake water in your hands. Consider its weight as it splits over your knuckles. With the liquid let out, the diatoms and microporals settle to a film. Stack and pile, shift and dig. When we get home, I clean your nails in a white basin. I watch particle follow particle down the sink. Under glass, lung tissue forms dyed clouds. It is an echo of the foam uncovered in autopsies of drowning victims, pink aerated cumulonimbus. This is a fun film because it's long lines. And this was a real challenge for our poor book designer. And they really, rose to the challenge. And so there are a number of poems throughout the book that are very long-lined poems. Anyway, so I have to do this. Doug Powell, this is really great, D.A. Powell, has a really wonderful collection called Tea, and it has very, very long lines. And he talks about how he was feeling really stuck in his MFA program, and he just turned to his notebook and started writing. Sometimes really small stuff does it, right? And I wrote this on a road trip, actually. I was driving from Iowa down to Memphis, Tennessee, where I grew up. Feather, crane, swarm. The ravine between the highway and the field fills with smooth sumac. Broken in the hand, it stains, leaves red on the palm. My sister broke her baby tooth at the zoo. Same 3-year-old body on the bluff at that parade, watching floats across concrete. Stepped in the fire ant nest in her jelly sandals with her small feet. My mother stripped her of her clothes, of her terry suit, too late to save her the biting. My sister still resents her young nakedness in a crowd of people, of insects. She was rough on her body. We have always been rough on our bodies. Spit shone from our foreheads, ashed crosses smear and sweat out from clay soil. We didn't want any baptisms, didn't want any blessings, until we were left without benediction for our sick body leaving us. My mother's hands puckering, done drinking, and her limbs the first to go cold. The blood stayed to her belly. When she died, the nurse dressed her in a clean dress, and I lay by her, simple body, no plastic, no tubes body, cotton and skin as the muscles relaxed from their living. Let her fluid go, stain her pelvis. Pigment swelling, clay soil, earth to clouds take a color, swarming, reflect the brimmed arsenals below, plants rusting, all that iron in the cloth tooth of her death dress, green holding white birds, cotton settling down. Okay, let's move into some love poems instead of some dead mom poems. They're not mutually exclusive. Actually, some of the feedback that I got on a really early version of this manuscript from a friend was that she was uncomfortable with how much sex was next to my grief. And I was just like, that's just the way it is. So, it's all bodies. It's called Peony. And this poem, I wrote this poem, my partner was living in California, and I was still in Iowa City, and I had these peonies in my front yard that were late, but they were behind all of the other peonies in the neighborhood, and I was getting obsessively anxious about that they would not bloom, and that it was like a cosmic sign of, you know, whatever. We all get paranoid. Great. Peony. The buds will open, or if it is Tuesday and you are still in California, will they remain buds, willing to be but no you to witness the unfolding? Will they unfold from their bud shells, or huddle as beetles crimpling, shriveling down to a nut? The weight of petals, cellulose ribboning and suffocating, lace, muffle, and ply. May I breathe here? Will you? No. No breath in a room filled with petals. Ants crawl over the pink nectar searching. They do not hurt the blossoms, nor do the blossoms need them to open, but I comfort in the tracing of pale surfaces to inners, and the ants eating away fibrous tissues, unletting the waxy string that holds all of it together, and then the petals will come undone and fall as hair defurling from a knot, held so long and plaited, texture pressed, pleasured and lowered. You pulled the tie from my hair with desperate, trying to smell me all at once, each cell in collision in comet, a ruffling of folded tin, crumpled newspaper that writhes and unfolds in flame, extinction in blue smoke. But if you are still in California on Tuesday, still it is impossible to know, as the peonies are not yet blooming, yet full to the nubbins, the very sepal, tired of holding all the petals that must be inside. How many? Numbers are no answer, as they separate one from the next, not the number that I need, which is a pleated thing, swelling along interstice to lower the thread between a you and an I, searching something that helps me count the time we have been together and the swelling of the time we must be apart, so that we may we just now, be it that we have these peonies, the peonies in their fullness make me want to get married in May. Still not married. It's fine. It's not a thing. Same guy though. Okay. Sorry, I'm changing my mind about things that I might want to read to you. Okay. Newly rendered truly. Newly, truly, bluely, ever madly, sadly, blue, blue, blue. Raw and bluely, piece of meat, awfully raw and tender, tenderly, ready for the swoon to fool me, dropped into a pool of cooling lust, or a sentence seamed with stitching nectar, bitten full of pollen. Bees sip from the mottled fool of me, even as a flower spools sweet things beside. Necked and thought came by myself, nursing a bitter back of the throat, trying to shape my mouth a poppy ringed with dew, my neck a greening nape. I come off inelegant, something borrowed, something burrowed, unseemly, blustering, laying my pleasure across the bed. If you give a phrase, will you supply the subject? If I tell the moon a phase, will she bring me a spot of light to hang among my singly, madly deepening blue? one more from this book, and then we'll read some other stuff. Gladiolus stem. You know what a gladiolus looks like? It's big, long, has like multiple. Yeah, that was really illustrative. I'm about to tell you in the poem, so okay. Gladiolus stem. Multiple blossoms on a skein, unfolding in a succession of uniform rhythms. Each blossom is the soon-to-be of the blossom above it. Those at the base are withered, brown. The top buds not even flowers yet. The one in the middle just starting to go papery at its edge. The day unthreads, and then the next day unthreads. All cannot be full at once. The olfactory sense develops fully at the end of the first trimester. The lover I have will never know my mother. The child I don't have will never know my mother. They won't know to miss, as in long for, the dark cuticle at the top of her front tooth, the one she always hid in pictures. I only saw it when she flossed, leaning over the sink and pulling back her lips for a better look. I feared my mouth turning such a color. Was it the right tooth or the left? I have no body to check. The obituary I wrote is elision. If you lose the baby late enough, your milk still comes in and no one to eat it. I'm confusing bodies. It's my mother I've lost, not my baby. My lover I am waiting to lose. So enters the wanting, the worry, of identifying my love in the days after he dies and no face to be found. Day-old newborns find their mothers by scent, sniffing out the milk-soaked flesh with their eyes closed. Which of his lower back muscles has the mole? Mole of the skin, not of the earth, in Spanish is lunar, as in of the moon. My color will come and then leave, leaving me too fragile to smell. Okay. What's the time for the new one? Yeah. Great. So this is a diptych, meaning it has two sort of paired poems, and they both have the same title. They're both called God is a Kite. God is a kite. The tether pierces my palm. I would have given up my hands earlier for this relief of a bodily mark of the intangible. I have never been a person of faith, made as I am of stiffer stuff, salt and tits and shallows. Shadow preserves snow. Each object has its own frosted cape in the shape of its shade. I am threaded through. I walk belated among the melting ice, holding or being held. Are you a kite or am I a doll hanging by a string? A lemon thread between two cans. Do I bring one to my ear in search of ocean, or do I drag them both behind my nuptial convertible, baby blue, hearing nothing I know? My mother is still dead, and I am still a child. God is a kite. After sex, I wake back to myself, estranged from what my body has finished doing, and the things I didn't teach it. It was an animal worrying a neck. He goes to wash, I lie and recollect. The pain in my jaw that subsided for the duration returns, and my tits settle into their creases, newly neat. The rushes on the side of my mind's stream quiver into stillness. Was I, predator? Am I prey? Maybe three more, two medium, one very short. Okay. I invest in horizon futures. I lie when I say